Peace and prosperity be unto all who's listening and watching. It's your girl, Shaeranea, right? And I'm back with another video. And today, positive reinsurance. The thing that you're struggling with will one day, you'll be free of it, okay? And I'm not saying that when you overcome things that it won't reoccur, but it's up to you to fight the things that you overcome and make sure that they never come back in your life. So if you overcome a pattern, addictions, and you change your behavior or anything, it's your duty as somebody who's learned to change to acknowledge when things are coming back in your mind or in your behavior and make sure that you keep yourself from doing those things again. In this society, we have really messed up coping mechanisms where we're kind of guarded. Not kind of. We're actually guarded from, and the energy keeps us keeps us protecting ourselves. So a lot of men and women operate from the same energy because we all been hurt, we all been betrayed, we all been mistreated, we all been disappointed in some way. And the masculine energy is a form of protection. So I'm a spiritual woman, and I don't really use my feminine energy unless I need to work on it so I can activate it fully. But my masculine energy is also my ego as well. I don't have a big ego. Most people do. I'm very competitive though, but I don't have a huge ego because I'm the Scorpio. We kill the ego. Naturally, we grow out of it, our egos. So I'm a sign of transformation, information, and evolving. That's what the Scorpio is about, growing and evolving, and information, because we love that. We love information. Also, it's just like understanding that our ways of coping aren't healthy. Like us not talking about things that bother us not speaking up on things that affect us right then in that moment, us not being honest with ourselves about things that we're doing that we could be working on. Like being honest about something that you need to work on as a person. It's just being super honest with yourself and like taking full responsibility and accountability for those things, right? And I want you guys to know that it's not always easy to outgrow these coping mechanisms, outgrow these patterns, outgrow these generational cycles that we've been experiencing for years, since the very beginning of Adam and Eve. It all started with them, and it worked down to David's generation, and it worked down to all the rest of the generations, and now it's at our generation. And we got so many generations of cycle behavior, coping mechanisms, violence, and we all are birthed and raised around the same things. And some of us, the way we perceive them are entirely different. It's based on our childhood traumas, because we all have trauma, trust me. The child in us didn't really understand a lot of things. Didn't understand. We was in a learning phase. Like that's our first learning phase, is as a child. So when you become an adult, that's when you experience like, oh, I need to work on my childhood trauma. And it's so weird because when you go to like college and you move out the house, like it doesn't resonate that you need to work on some things. It's just because they're not like present, they're not present. But it's like when it comes to a place in your life where you have to grow and face that part of yourself, right? You come to this realization that you're like messed up on the inside. The inner child in you is like messed up, like either had a darkened tendency nature or very cunning and scheming like me. I was a very cunning and scheming child. I was very quiet. I realized the inner child in me really despised a lot of things. I did not despise people, but I did despise a lot of things that people were doing around me. And I didn't realize that until I had to face those things. And it's troubling because the things that you are built off today is because of that young you. The you that was just learning, that really didn't understand why people were doing what they were doing, or why you were seeing what you were seeing, or why the experience you're having along in somebody else's journey, your parents' journey, because that wasn't your journey necessarily. You were part of their journey. And why were you seeing these things, and how these things made you feel, and why you didn't know, like, you didn't know how to control these, your temper tantrum, your anger. You didn't understand why they made you feel the way you feel. You didn't understand any of that stuff. Like, you don't understand. And like, our childhood is like the most important part of ourselves, because like ultimately we subconsciously built ourselves off of that, like that in general. I'm saying, like, if we seen a lot of something that we didn't like, when we get older, we're gonna either we're gonna like really despise it, or say in our minds we won't do it and not do it when we get older. Like, and sometimes we struggle with our inner hearts, because there's some unsubconscious things our inner child is struggling with as well, because the inner child us does not fully understand what it was experiencing. Doesn't fully, like, if you randomly feel pain from a childhood memory and don't really understand why, but you understand why you feel, like, understand what the reason behind you not liking that experience, but not understand why you feel so much pain in your heart, or the inner child, why it's like, ugh. You know, if you don't understand those things, it's just like really sitting down, taking the time to analyze these things. And it's a lot that we have to work on ourselves, because our very foundation is built off that child. That child that lacked the understanding, didn't understand why things were going on, didn't understand why the parents were doing certain things, or why people, children are peer. They're peer, and they know people. They know a good and bad person from the energy of a person. They know more about people than we do, and it depends on how they're more spiritual than we are, because they're more connected, and they're just fresh. They're freshly new. They're just learning new things, and they don't fully understand or comprehend all the things that they see. And sometimes that can be a blurred line between childhood adult you and the inner child you becoming a adult. And sometimes after we've experienced so much trauma, because we don't really think about those childhood things. We don't think about those things. We don't understand them. Like, why would where in life do people have time to think about childhood traumas? And that's why a lot of people are still struggling. Knowing, like, in no part in our lives do we like, some people get the coaching and the therapy early on, and that's great. And they talk about it early on. They may have a good friend that they talk to you about it. But a lot of people didn't have friends, isolated, betrayal, didn't have anybody to trust, didn't trust anybody, was always in the streets, was always fighting, and couldn't find nobody to trust with their thoughts, their feelings, and things like that. Honestly, it's a struggle. Okay, it's a struggle, because that inner child you build something that you don't even consciously realize. Like, you're built off a child that did not understand. Like, I'm serious. Like, the adult you understands everything. Understands, like, your current behaviors and why you experience your heartbreaks and why you did all those things in high school. But when it comes down to, like, little kid you, the childhood you, the inner trauma, whew, that stuff we don't understand, because that's a stage of our lives where there was no understanding. We were just learning. And then if people didn't teach us to understand what we were learning, give us a greater, it was good. It's good, because kids ask a lot of questions and they want a lot of answers, right? But even in asking questions and getting answers, that doesn't give them full understanding understanding and grasp of what's really going on. Now, if you plant in your kids' mind the answers that they want to their questions, also the responsibility behind those answers, and the pro and con to that. If you give them the totality of that stuff, then my biggest thing is people don't spend more time teaching their kids, and people spend more time, being invested into sports and spending time on inner activities and things that are not important, that doesn't help a child learn or grow. And a lot of times people work, which leads to neglect of children, because you don't have really no time to spend with them. And the time that you do spend with them, you don't really want to. Some people really don't want to spend time with their kids, because the only time that they get a break from work is the time that they had to be at home with them. And I wish life was a lot different, because a lot of children are growing up with bad experiences in which they don't fully understand, in which they fully don't remember, and they're growing up to be adults of subconsciously guarded, hurt, in pain, lack so many things, and would be the lack of so many things because of that. And because when you don't have the example of those things that you need, and you don't understand that you need certain things, when you obtain those things when you get much older, it becomes a struggle. It becomes hard because you experience so much in the process. Like, we remember so much of our painful experiences. We remember so much of the betrayals. We remember so much of what people have done to us, okay? The wrongs. I don't honestly remember anybody good who came in my life growing up. I had a lot of friends, but I was like I was pretty much friends with everybody. I was like the class clown. I was the one who stayed in trouble. I was the weirdo who's quiet in the back, I fit in with the crowd. I was the all around kind of person, because I had a personality that was like all around with everybody. Like, I fit in with the nerds. I fit in with the weirdos. I fit in with the athletes, because I was an athlete, a weird athlete. I fit in with the people who was intimate early on in life. I fit in with the people who stayed in trouble a lot. I just fit in with like everybody, because that's how I learned. That's how I grew up fast. That's how I obtained my wisdom, because I grew up doing so many things and experiencing so many things and having to overcome so many things. But all those things, despite how many people I had in my life, I always kept them on the outside, and I always kept a guard up, and I always was guarded. I always been guarded my whole life. And then it's rare that I even put my walls down for anybody. And it's hard to meet people, because people like me believe in sacred bonds, and believe like the true connection between one person and you, and believe that it's only important that I share myself with one person, and that I truly share the sacredness of me with that one person. And that's just how I am. And sometimes we don't know how these things affect us subconsciously. I know that consciously, when we go through hardships and we go through more painful experience on top of the things that's buried in our hearts, okay? Because our hearts, they said whatever's in your heart is bound to come out, and it's true. It's so true, guys. When you have things buried deeply in your heart and they're unsubconsciously unremembered, they come about and surface, and when you remember them and you experience them in that current time of your life, you may be healed, you may be overcome, or whatever you've been through, they will come in like a memory of pain. You will feel pain, but you won't understand why you're in pain, and it's just a childhood memory, and you just want so bad to get over it. But it also gives you the acknowledgement of why you're struggling with your current struggles now, because the inner child you is like, it's like bringing up things that you remember, the things that you don't really understand. Like, that inner child in you is speaking to you, is like, this is the stuff you don't like right here, but you're not like thinking about it. You're not really thinking about it because like the inner child you really built you up to be the adult you are today, and you don't really know that until you get much older. Until you get much older, it's so significant in an insignificant way, and it's so powerful. And I just want you guys to take time to work on yourselves, because when I had to acknowledge that I was experiencing inner child memories, or it was not a good feeling, because for some reason, because I am a strong feeling kind of person, the pain that I felt from the memory was not okay. But I acknowledge those things and I worked on them, and I'm still working on everything about myself, especially the current things that I'm working on in my life, like my dreams, my goals, my obligations, and things like that. So I want you guys to have a prosperous day and know that I love you guys, and that, you know, no matter what you're going through, you can always overcome it, because it's a part of you growing as an individual, but it also is a part of you acknowledging something about yourself. I want you guys to comment, subscribe, and like this video. And if you want any information about me, it'll be in the description box below. And I love you guys.